Welcome to What CEOs Talk About. Do you wonder what CEOs talk about behind closed doors? How they bring their vision to reality? How do they overcome and succeed through adversity? We share that and so much more with each episode. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, everybody. My name is Martin Hunter. I am the host of What CEOs Talk About, where we translate vision into frontline operations. Today on the show, we have Tammy. Tammy, name, rank, serial number.
Thanks, Martin. Tammy Heermann, and I've spent my career, 25 years, in leadership development. So I started inside organizations as a software trainer, if you can believe it, as an instructional designer, and then ascended into really starting and leading a development function within a software firm. I've worked in multiple industries, and then I decided, well, let's take a jaunt into consulting. So for 13 years, I worked for a global consulting firm, human capital consulting firm, where I led the leadership development function for Canada, and then moved into a global role. Was the senior vice president of I think we called it leadership transformation at the time, and was the global practice leader for women in leadership. So in that time, I really gained a passion for the advancement of women and working specifically with women and the leaders that support them. After doing that for a number of years, I decided, hey, I've been inside, I've been in consulting, let's try this entrepreneurial thing. And so for the last, I guess it's been 5 years, I've been doing this on my own. Workshops and keynotes and high potential programs, specifically targeted at women and the leaders that support them.
Fabulous. Thank you. Before we start the show, for all the listeners, we have just, for all the stuff that's been asked of us, we have on the website, you'll have the resource. So Tammy's book right here, Reframe Your Story. There's going to be a link to that. There's a link to the entire CEO kind of book club library on there. It points, so anybody that wants to have more or learn more about Tammy or previous guests, their services, their books, everything, just go to whatceostalkabout.com. If I said it properly, maybe they'd go whatceostalkabout.com. Thank you very much. Go there, fill your boots, enjoy. There's a couple of great episodes, and there's a lot of resources to be out there for you guys to take advantage of. Great. With that said, Tammy, what is the title of the show? What did we pick today?
We picked Think Leadership, Think Female. And you want me to tell you why we picked that?
No. Don't you dare spill the beans. We have to keep people on a fishtail story. You got to listen. So, you know, when you watch, it drives me nuts. My kids and my wife watch, I think, Bake Engineer Baking or something like that. And it's a show, and they say, well, somebody's going to have to leave today. And they take this long pause. And they go, Tammy, long pause. It's not you. It's Martin. And I like, you know what? I'm going to apply that to my podcast. I see what happens.
The art of suspense. It's an oldie but a goodie.
Drives me nuts. It's like, you think you could, it's been on for 25 years. And I just realized, like, same thing when I was looking at it. There's like, wow, Survivor has been on for 30 years and the host is still dark haired. I'm like, come on, man. Like, you got gray hair. You can stop dyeing your hair, man.
Well, it's awesome that he survived after so many scandals with others, and it's like the show should be for him at some point.
Get all the people that you sidetracked and hoist and put them all on the beach and sleep. Let's see who gets them first. Anyways, all right, Tammy, you kind of gave us a brief introduction about your past. Can we go a little bit more details, because it's important for the listeners? We've got about an hour together, so it's important that you kind of give context, who you are, where were you born, where'd you grow up, and then kind of what I'm interested in knowing is, with all my guests, is what were the key moments that pushed you from one place to another? What kind of said enough is enough, and those trigger moments? So in your story, can you say, okay, well, when I went from here to here, really, I had enough with this, or I realized that. So give us the transitional moments from where one place to another. Okay, so where were you born and all that good stuff? Ready, set, go.
Martin, I love this because I actually, in my leadership development programs, do an activity with leaders that is exactly this. So I have mine prepared. So I was born in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So I'm a Western girl, and grew up. My father had a farm, and he did that, and was a mechanic. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and I studied business. And with that, you kind of get a bit of a broad lens, and you look at companies, and you're studying case studies of these companies, and Toronto and
Southwest Airlines.
That's right. And the US, and it's exciting. And I always had this, yearning to kind of see the world and to explore. And I did well in school. So luckily, when I decided to apply to graduate school, I thought, okay, there was only one program in Canada that was a fit for me, and the rest were all in the UK. And I wasn't going to go to the US because that was way too expensive. But I was accepted to all of the UK schools, and I ended up going to the London School of Economics, which of course is a fantastic school.
You think?
Yeah. And that was one of the first pivotal moments, because it opened my eyes to, global scholars, students from all over the world. The guest speakers that we would have were, literally Nobel Prize winners and heads of state and whatnot. So that was kind of the first, big eye-opening moment. And I really kind of got this global lens as I studied, human resources and strategies from around the world. And then I went back to Saskatoon, and I thought, this feels a bit small, at least back in the 90s it did. And so I had some friends, and I came to Toronto. But the interesting thing is when I was applying for jobs, my background was both in marketing and in human resources. And at the exact same time, I got offered 2 full-time jobs. One was in marketing in a firm, what are they called? Not a PR, but advertising firm. And the other was in a financial services in the HR training. And that was my first decision. I'm like, do I go the marketing route or do I go the HR route? And I did pick HR because I was always interested in the leadership and learning kind of function. So from there, I worked a little bit there, didn't particularly love the financial services environment, and the tech was just starting as a sector to start buzzing.
Fall asleep. Financials. Our CFO is just a fabulous individual, and he makes economics interesting and lively. Because I sometimes oh my God, our Deloitte.
Well, that is rare.
Yes.
And then that's kind of like, just as an industry, it wasn't a fit for me. And so I started in the tech sector, and, loved it, loved the fast pace, loved all of that, but was, a victim of restructuring 3 times. Again, this would have been the early 2000s. And I thought, oh, okay. So I had the opportunity to take a role over in Europe. And again, it would be, leaving on my own. But it was a no-brainer for me because, getting that global lens was always something that appealed to me. And so I headed up the human resources function for 5 European offices. But again, it was, as a Canadian, everyone kind of looked at you and was like, what are you doing here? I didn't speak any of the 5 languages.
Oh, no.
All the laws were different, of course, in each country. And so I thought, what I'm going to do is start a business case to grow a development function from scratch, and then was able to kind of get the executive team buy-in and move back to Toronto and start the leadership development function. So again, that was kind of a key piece for me. Did that, had fun. Again, we were acquired by a big California giant, and the consulting firms that I hired at the time offered me a job. So that was great and tough and all of that. But I'd say one of the most pivotal moments for me was, I was heading up this practice area, and our CEO at the time came to me and said, Tammy, I've got this buddy, and his daughter just bought this organization. It was called Women of Influence. And she puts on, these inspiring luncheons and whatnot, but she doesn't want to just be a a motivational kind of company. She wants to really advance the numbers. So she needs a partner. And he said to me, make it work. And so, kajunk, on my desk came this project from our CEO. And of course, we didn't make money from it. It was a distraction. I wasn't evaluated on it. The margin was different. The business model was different from what we did in the firm. Like, it just, none of it made sense. But I had to do it. And of course, from that came a passion as I listened to the stories, as I was, developing this content, engaging in the research about why this was even needed. I kind of found my passion. And so that was certainly a critical leadership turning point for me as well.
And so what pushed you to leave that to start your own thing? What was the straw, or the kind of like, okay, I'm kind of done with this?
Yeah. Well, so, for anyone that's worked in a global consulting firm, it's not a job. It's not even a career. It's a lifestyle. And so there's lots of travel, and there's lots of hours and all of that. And so, I'd be lying if I didn't say that was one piece, that after 13 years of that, I thought, it might be nice to kind of be in control of my own, my own thing. But the other thing was, and this happens so often, is where, we have the area we're supposed to be focused on, but, when you're needed, you're needed. And so I was often pulled in so many directions, and I just knew my passion was to focus 100% on the advancement of women piece. And so I was no longer really able to do that. And so I thought, you know what? Now's the time. And then it also freed up some time for me to write the book, which was a whole different challenge.
Oh, yeah. So tell me, I'm always curious, what was the last kind of decision? Do you remember the time where you said, yeah, I'm done? Yeah. So tell us, where were you sitting? What were you doing? Who were you talking to? Were you by yourself? Were you with a dog, a cat, a mouse, a bird? How did it come about?
Yes. So I was sitting in a low-end hotel somewhere in the US that I don't even remember. I opened my curtains and was staring into a parking lot. And I had just gotten off a call where we were to respond to an RFP, a request for proposal, for a pretty significant client and a significant piece of work. And I was speaking at a conference, but it was the first time ever that I could stay and maybe attend a few sessions for myself to actually learn and listen to someone else. And it was just immediately stripped away because of this RFP. And as much as I was trying to, do all the things I tell women to do, create boundaries and empower other people to help and carve out, where I could add my value and where I couldn't, I just was ramming my head up against the wall. And I thought, you know what? I'm done. And I burst into tears, and I called my husband and I said, I want to quit. And he said, okay, okay. And so we talked about it when I got home that weekend, and I resigned on the Monday. And it's funny because my boss at the time had said to me, I told my wife that weekend, I think Tammy's going to resign on Monday. I was so frustrated in that call. It just kind of came to a head. And that was, I remember it vividly.
Well, I would say to your boss, who was your boss, poor leadership. If you knew that was going to happen, then you should have done something about it. Well, too bad for him or her. Yeah. Sorry. So what do you do now? How do you add value to somebody's life? Why does somebody give you money, and what do you improve in their livelihood?
Yeah. So there's a few things that I focus on, and I always say for the women and the leaders that support them, and I think we'll probably talk about that too. And so most organizations today, are kind of paying attention to their diversity numbers, all forms of diversity. But again, my expertise is in that one sliver of female advancement. And if they're looking to, create a community of support, so maybe it's in an employee resource group, and they'll bring me in as a speaker, or they'll have their big leadership conference and they'll bring me in as a speaker. So that's how organizations might use me as a dose of inspiration and some practical takeaways in 45 to 60 minutes. Or they'll want to do some skill building. So we'll run workshops and we'll talk about everything from mastering your mindset and imposter syndrome to, influence and building your network, whatever it may be. So that's kind of the second way. Or for the managers that support them, we'll kind of talk about the headwinds for women. Are there any differences when you're coaching kind of for diversity, those things. And then the last way, which is kind of my favorite, is high potential programs. So that's when an organization says, I've got, a small handful of people and they're on the track. We really see something in them and we want to really accelerate their development. And so that will be programming, that'll be coaching, it might be networking events, all that kind of thing. And there's nothing better. And I just finished one of those programs. And a couple of the women said to me, this was life-changing. And sure, part of that was my conversations with them, but a lot of that is that they no longer felt alone, because when they came in this community and heard from so many other women, they just felt that they were then surrounded, that what they were thinking and experiencing wasn't just them.
Yeah. I've got a cool story that I'd like to share before we go into the title of the show. We had, we still have it. A few months back, we had somebody from our marketing team who was 8 months pregnant, and it came to the leadership team's meeting that this individual had, and it was brought up by a female, by a woman. She says, she's starting to get baby brain. There's some decisions that I know this person can do and is not doing. So we know that she's hardworking. She's looking to work as far as she can before she's taken her maternity leave. Said, we need to address that situation because she's making, some decisions that are quite impactful. And we know that it's not her fault, right? It's not. So I said, well, what's stopping us from, paying her the full amount? Like, is there, they said, no, we'd set a precedent, but let's find something. Let's have a chat with her. And then as the managing partner and CEO of the organization, I said, I think we should have like a women's council. And I said, I don't know anything about pumping out babies. I got 4 kids, but I've been at the receiving end of the baby, not at the throwing end of the baby. So I don't know. I've never had baby brain. So then one of the female, half of our leadership team is female and are women. And I get the stern Martin. I was like, oh shit. Like, I'm in trouble now. He's like, why would we have a women's council? And so I was like, oh shit. So I'm going through my repertoire going, what did I say? How did I say it? Why is she so upset with me? And I'm like, I don't know. It's like, are we not sitting at the table? Yeah. Are we entitled and empowered and supposed to make decisions for the organization? I said, yeah. So why should we need a council? We're sitting here, we're representing 50% of the leadership team is women, are women, I should say. And and all the boys we kind of all looked at each other. It was like, oh, like it had never dawned on us that we had gone down this really good inclusive pathway without having to put extra effort. They've just kind of been there, and but it just showed how us guys always have a kind of, okay, well, what should we do for them? Although it wasn't derogatory, it was still a difference in sex. Is that like everybody appreciated my values, appreciated what I brought to the table. Again, I wasn't chastised or anything like that, but there's an awakening moment of inclusivity that is just kind of, no matter how much you think about women leadership, the people in our organization get paid the same level. We don't have any issues like that, but just my mindset, does that make sense? Like it wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It was just different, but it just shows how us men, we always think in a certain way of protecting the women, right? Feeling the need to, why we think, I don't want to say we're better, but to feel the need to protect, right? Which is ingrained in men. So anyways, that was.
Well, I think that is, no, that's a great story. And I think that is kind of a base, normalized behavior that men tend to exhibit. But what I really appreciate about your story is that, congratulations that you have that kind of representation. That sadly, that's just not the experience of most organizations. Right? And the numbers are not there. And Canada has the 8th largest gender pay gap. So your organization is doing something right. That's great. And I hope it's sustainable, because oftentimes when you look at whether it's board or the executive suite, 1 or 2 resignations, or God forbid something happens to someone and the numbers are shot. And so I'm always telling organizations, you got to pay attention to the pipeline all the way through the organization, because I hope the rest of the women down lower levels feel that same empowerment. It's great they have role models.
Absolutely. For us, I just found out on Monday that there's another woman who's pregnant. And what I liked about it is that instead of hiding the fact that they're pregnant, they're like, hey, I'm pregnant, by the way. And so we said, okay, so, we've had 2 babies now within the Urgio kind of framework. And like, do we have like a playbook for this? Like, how do we deal with making sure that the requirements for employment insurance, maternity leave, all of that playbook is enacted as soon as possible, right? And so we're like, we've just kind of shot from the hip. And so I was like, okay, well, get your ass in gear, folks, because we got 9 months, hopefully, not earlier than that, 9 months to make sure that this individual leaves in comfort. And the one thing that we've noticed is in the 2 pregnancies is that a lot of the time, and this is where I want to change kind of the paradigm, is the team members wanted to come back to work earlier, but not lose their benefits. So I was like, okay. And I said, why did well, they said, we don't want to leave and just kind of cold cut hard at the front end and at the back end. One, we don't feel it's fair to you guys. And I'm going to miss work. I really am going to miss work. I was like, oh shit. Never thought about that. So the team is really working hard at, we did it ad hoc, but it was like kind of like at first it was like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever. Like we didn't set a timeline. It was agreed upon. And then it was like, okay, I want to be part of the bi-weekly team meetings. I want to be part of this so that I'm not necessarily going to generate work, but I want to stay atop of the information so that when I do come back, and if for some reason you guys don't have the answer that I did not prepare well enough to hand over, you guys can ask me the question without having to feel like you're interrupting my life and, enjoying my baby. And I was like, shit. Like, we're on to something. Hey, like, how do we make money off of this? Like, how do we sell this program?
Well, and it's such a personal response, right? Because some women want to stay connected because they truly want to. Others feel the pressure that they have to in order to, keep their trajectory. And others, and I was in that camp, I said, see ya. 14 months later, I know I'm good. When I come back, I'm going to take the time there and then I'm going to jump right back in. So it's such a personal decision. And it sounds like, Martin, you guys are handling these things as they come with, a lot of emotional intelligence. It sounds like.
I mean, we're a boutique firm, right? So we have a lot more flexibility. I mean, clients like we had like Tyson Foods, and where the body needs to be in that place. Like, the leadership leading people cutting chicken is not going to happen by itself. And no matter how much you touch base, I mean, there has to be a cold heart, a cold stop, and a cold start. That's, I mean, for us, is if we've got the opportunity, why the hell not? And I have to admit, like, I mean, we've got a killer team, and we kind of, it's funny because my chief operating officer and partner, Kevin, he's like, shit, I got 3 kids, man. How come we didn't do that for my kids when I, right? I mean, we've met and then, so I was like, same way. I was like, Tracy and I got 4 kids, and we're like, it was so different back then than what it is today. So what is the title of the show?
The title of the show is Think Leadership, Think Female.
And why is that? Why do you pick that?
Yeah. So I'm on a mission. There is a well-known, at least in my circles, stereotype called think manager, think male. And it was, came out of research in the 1970s. And what it means is that we all, like literally all of us, this is decades of research, equate leadership characteristics to masculine characteristics and traits. And we still all do this. Women, we do it too. So all of us. And that no longer serves us well. And so I'm on a mission to kind of get rid of that stereotype and replace it with think leadership, think female. Now, of course, some people challenge me and they say, Tammy, shouldn't it be think leadership? Think anyone, think everyone. And yes, absolutely it should. Yeah. But again, my slice of the pie here is females.
It's different biologically. I talk about this quite frequently at the female team of our group tends to be a lot more risk adverse, risk management, inclusive, more let's look at the broader picture. How can this impact, right? And they go, well, and then the males, we are so laser focused, right? And we go, I'm going to bash this down. I'm going to go till there's not just, until my blood runs dry, I will drive that forward, right? And we always say, right, it's a wholesome decision and who should be doing what in there. So, the female component of our leadership team goes, okay, have we thought about this? Have we thought about that? Have we thought about this? Where guys are like, okay, so, let's stay laser focused. What is, the critical path? And all the time there is, and Andrea, our VP of operations, brings that up. We don't have personal conflicts. We have task conflicts. Okay. What should be done when and why and how that, and then we really look objectively. I mean, we're operators by nature at Urgio. And that is what I absolutely love about a diverse leadership team. And we need to bring the pendulum back. It's not one or the other. Yeah, and I say it's the same thing. If you say everybody, then you're not pinpointing, you're not being intentional about solving the balance project or the balance of the situation. Yeah.
One of the really, again, pivotal moments for me, and I think this is what you're talking about in terms of if some differences, not only in skills and behaviors, but in perceptions of what men and women. I had done my first 360. Do you know what a 360 assessment is?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So people rate you on their perceptions of your leadership capabilities. And it's a 360 when, your direct reports fill it out, your colleagues, your boss, sometimes external partners. So you really get feedback from everybody.
Hence 360-degree feedback.
Yes. It's painful, but it's good for you.
Yes.
And so what happened for me is, had some good things, had some bad things, just like everyone else. But what I found was going to be, a big barrier for me is that I was perceived as more tactical than strategic. And, I just, first of all, I thought, well, how can this be? I had a business lens. I was running a business. I created programs that taught other leaders how to be strategic. So, how is this happening? And I thought, is it just me, or is it, there's something bigger here? And so I started to dive into the research. And one of the, most seminal research studies I found was Herminia Ibarra. At the time, she was at INSEAD, one of the world famous executive leadership programs. And she and her team looked at 360s from over 14,000 senior leaders. And what they found was that women actually outshone men on many, if not most, of the leadership competencies. But there were some that were kind of the same, but where they were unanimously lower was the perceptions of strategic capability. They rated themselves lower. Their bosses did, their colleagues did. Everyone was rating women lower. And so, that strategic capability is obviously critical if you want to rise in an organization. And it's being able to kind of, take diverse, things in the environment, create strategy from that, and then, influence others to execute plans. It's exactly what you talk about in the introduction to your show. and women were markedly lower. And so then I dove into, well, why is this the case? Because do I think that they are worse at this? No, we're not. But there's a lot of things that keep us kind of in the weeds. And so there's things like really overvaluing performance. I mean, women spend a lot more time on kind of performance and to-do lists than they do building the relationships and working on the networks and whatnot.
Agreed. Yeah.
When they do put forth ideas, oftentimes it's in such a collaborative manner that they don't get credit for that idea or for driving that. So again, that's a perception of not being as strategic. So I kind of dove into a number. Risk taking was one of them. You mentioned that.
Yeah.
Little less willing to take those risks. And so, you add this all together, multitasking as an overstrength, right? So when we have 10,000 balls in the air at work and at home, oftentimes that keeps us down in the weeds and great tacticians. And so for me, this is a problem because the capability is there that we and organizations and culturally we're doing things that are kind of keeping women in the weeds. And boy, did the pandemic ever bring that to light as, we heard all the stories about women quitting and doing, double and triple duty at home and whatnot. So for me, this is one of the biggest pieces that has to be figured out for kind of this advancement to happen to more equal numbers.
What was it, about 2 years ago, I purposefully picked a male executive assistant. So I said, it's not fair. It's always been women in my life. I'm going to pick a dude. I'm going to be completely the opposite. I want to go. It was the worst thing I've ever done in my life. Worst thing I've done in my life. And again, I didn't test with 2 or 3. I was like, I am not ready and willing to put my life, because what people tend to think about strategic is that they think that you have to be master and commander to be strategic. You can build the strategic plans, you can have the strategic mindset, but you don't necessarily have to be the one in the shiny suit holding it. And there's so many, I think of Napoleon, right? And you think of his wife. His wife was a mastermind. And she was a mastermind. And when you think about the life that I have, because I run a lot of businesses and I'm intent, as you know, right? I've got my rugby academy. I've got UltraVest. I've got the podcast. I've got what CEOs talk about. We've got Urgio. We've got 27 different clients there that all have businesses. Anyways, long story short. And I've got 2 kids who play rugby and a wife and partner who is a leader, a strategic. She plans all of us. We just do. And Tracy put her legal career aside and she made that decision. She chose to, and we were fortunate enough to be in the financial position where I could bring in the revenue, and she chose to do that. So all to say that the EAs that I've had, the first EA is now our VP of Admin and Finance. So she is so strategic in being able to think, what is Martin going to need? How does it connect? Strategic means to be able to forecast a path of less resistance. Doesn't mean that you have to holler it. It doesn't mean that you have to point the finger like George Washington. You can be strategic without being the stage person. What do we call it? The front man, front person, whatever. And so oftentimes my EA and this kid was just like, no, you're not me, dude. You're not me. Your job is to take care of me, not to be me, but do it in a way that is strategic. And this just couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. And I was like, I'm not doing it. I said, I'm sorry. This is going to sound completely, I want a strong female that's got life experience, that's got kids, that doesn't want to necessarily do anything different, but wants to take care and wants to be involved in talking to a lot of people and be strategic at her own level. And lo and behold, we've got Raquel. So
yeah. You're exactly how you're defining it is how I talk about being strategic to organizations. So if you Google it, what comes up is military references, big, CEO strategies, strategic documents, but that's not organizations expect people at every level to be strategic. And it's exactly what you said, that you can think, 1, 2, 3 steps ahead, that you can say, oh, what I'm doing, how is it impacting the people over here? How is what they're doing impacting me over here? It's about influencing. You talked about that too. EAs and chiefs of staff are incredible influencers because they have to be, because they don't have the formal authority to get things done. So being strategic is about influencing and building relationships. It's right. It's about how you're strategic about your career and how you're thinking about kind of your next steps down the road. So that's exactly it, Martin.
It's funny because people don't think about it, but when Greta, and because as much as I love Raquel doing the work now, Greta was even though she's VP, there's so many times when I've been without an EA, that I formally and tell everybody, make sure that I don't ask Greta to do it, because I didn't want to pull her back into what I consider kind of a backward motion, right? To say, well, she voluntarily helped out, but she went all the way up the ranks to the VP of Admin and Finance, which I don't want to destroy. Anyways, with Greta, we would have a meeting and my week would be defined without even me telling or asking. Now, tell me that's not strategic for somebody who goes in 2 months in advance. Oh, Martin, by the way, your trip to Florida, I've got you going here. I've got you going there. I've got you going there. You're going to be meeting with this individual, that individual. I actually thought, I looked on Google and there was a difference in time frame. So instead of giving you an hour, I gave you an extra 90 minutes in your travel. Tell me that's not strategic. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. But because we associate EA, executive assistant, as a secretary part. Yes. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that's the assumption. Yeah. It's like that person is not strategic and lesser, and you're Martin's EA. It's Martin, like, fuck off. Pardon my French.
Yeah. And once again, I'll say, sadly, you're right. Most people don't, see that or recognize those skills or see that they're transferable. So when, someone is trying to say, I have these skill sets and I want to use them in a new domain, oftentimes they don't get recognized as that. So
the one part strategic as well that women are much better at than men is when it comes time to being nasty. When it comes time to firing people and telling them that they're not performing, men tend to avoid conflict because they don't want to feel the need to hurt somebody's feelings. Where women, Andrea loves firing people. Like our VP of operations.
She loves it. I hope that's an overstatement.
She's like, I'll do it. I was like, damn, you're scary. And same thing with Greta. Greta is originally from Mexico, and she's got a lovely accent. And when she gets kind of firm, her accent comes out a little bit more. I was like, uh-oh. Greta, somebody's going to get fired. Greta's getting upset. So there's just this, I don't know, women tend to be a lot better at addressing this conflict than, that's what I see at Urgio, right? I can't speak for other people, but at Urgio, we tend to kind of go around the table and instead of being the boss or the leader of that individual, we kind of go around the table and say, like, who's got the best relationship with X to kind of deliver the news that's in kind of a humane, respectful kind of way.
Yeah. Well, what you're pointing to, and again, research would show that certainly in terms of empathy and warmth and whatnot, women tend to score higher in that regard. And I think that's what you're describing is being able to, deliver a message with strength, but also that empathy piece. And I actually wrote a piece about this not too long ago during the pandemic, that women are actually getting penalized though for that skill of empathy. And of course, when there was, mass resignations and organizations were bleeding people and people were, sick, not only with COVID, but with mental health issues, it was a lot of the female managers and the CHROs and the HR, and they were stepping in and rather than treating this as crisis management, which it absolutely is in organizations. I mean, they were, bleeding people. We just look what happened to the retail sector and being, not being able to kind of start up again. is that skill set of empathy. Rather, it was being seen as, oh, you're the office mom, or of course you should be doing that because you're better suited to it, versus the strategic crisis management skill set that it is. And so, yeah, I don't know if your listeners want to kind of check out that. It was on LinkedIn, that piece I did. It can be an overstrength that is not valued. And during this time, I think it absolutely needs to be.
There's so in your book, I was going through your book, there's a chapter 4 that I really like, which is ruled at meeting. And I think that, what did you write here? Prepped and present. And I think too many times women are abdicate, because I shouldn't say abdicate. They acquiesce because they're like, okay, this is not critical. This is not urgent. This is not. And so, a male will get upset, or I shouldn't say upset. It's not the right word. We'll get focused and energized and say, okay, this is what we agreed upon. And instead, the women, instead of saying, wait, hold on a second, they tend to hold back. Hey, let's think about this for a while. I remember when I was growing up, for a woman to be a leader, she had to be a boss. She had to be a bitch. She had to forgo all of the emotional and chemical reactions that you guys are better than us at in males. They had to be pushed all aside. So that woman was hated by men and by women to be in a position of leadership, because she had to push aside all of what makes good female leaders.
All her femininity.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because I mean, at one side, sometimes you have to make wartime decisions. And so you're a peacetime leader or a wartime leader. And sometimes you have to make wartime decisions that need immediacy and direct risk management that is a little bit higher. And sometimes that's, that fits the male leadership a little bit better. But, 9 times out of 10, no, I shouldn't say that. Maybe 7 times out of 10, we're not necessarily in wartime situation. And with COVID, that's what kind of happened. We was like, okay, this is crisis. We're wartime. Move over, ladies. Let the guys take over. Right. Yeah. Instead of saying, well, hold on a second. This is more of a business continuity issue than a crisis.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think owning part of that meeting is something that you say in your book that women could improve on, to say, hold on.
Yeah. I think there's 2 things. It's certainly, and I write from the viewpoint in this book, just, how can women themselves spur? So the piece we have to work on is getting our voice in the meeting. But the other piece of the puzzle is we have to make room and space for quieter voices, for introverts, for diverse points of view. Because when there is space, and in North America, especially, when there is space, people will fill it. And who's filling it is typically the men, right? They'll fill it. Yeah. Yeah. And the extroverts. And so, there's 2 parts of it. So one, and I work so much with women on this, and I'd say minority men. The high potential program I just finished was with women and minority men, to just believe that what they say and their experience has value, because we sit there and go, it's already been said, or what value does that have? Or I don't know enough about this, so I can't bring it forward. Or, how do I get into this volley of conversation that is just going back and forth? So much of what I do is kind of the mindset and the techniques to kind of get in there. But then as leaders in the meeting, got to make space for that. We literally have to stop, hey, you're interrupting that person. Please go on. Or, hey, I think she actually said that idea first. Didn't you? Like, give credit to people. So it's everyone's role is to help make space for the voices, for sure.
There's self-doubt too. I mean, I've coached my daughter for a long time. And even though sometimes we make space, women tend to not take the space as well. Well, I don't have anything of value to bring. Right. And even sometimes, it's gone now, but we see that quite frequently with new team members. We're very inclusive in our conversations and leadership. And Kevin, our COO, will say, well, Tammy, what do you think? And I don't know. Well, I don't think I really have anything. And then Kevin just stays quiet.
Yeah.
And even then, sometimes it takes repetition for the person, and it will take at least 60 to 90 days for that, where you don't see it as much in men. Men will come in nervous as well, and they'll say, well, I'm new to the organization. I'll just let, the more senior people talk. But it doesn't take as long for guys to kind of understand that, okay, yeah, I can add value, where women tend to go, yeah, no, it's really ingrained or internalized.
Yeah. And I did a lot of thinking about that in the last little while. And what I've kind of come to my thinking right now is as you said, we all feel that fear or reticence or doubt. But the normed response is, for girls and women to stay safe, to hold back, to not risk, and the norm response for boys, young boys, and we do it right from when they're little to men is, yes, you're afraid, but do it anyway. Be brave, have courage, risk. And so the normed responses are different. And years ago, I think it was Dove who launched that big campaign about, girls, we need them to be brave. We have to stop that. But we haven't come very far along that yet. But I think we are socialized to, in those situations, to act differently. And so it's not that the men don't feel the fear, right? They do.
Oh, yeah. They're just
socialized differently to go do it anyway.
I am going to, so we were in a rugby tournament. I'm not going to say where, because if you listen to the podcast, whoever you are out there, I know your name and I know what you said. So I'm just going to use you as an example. All right. So we're at a rugby tournament and we're coaching U14 girls. My daughters played rugby and field hockey. And so I go up and I say, hey, listen, where's the physio? Where's the water? Why do we have the reffing? So you've got a 14-year-old girl coaching 14-year-old girls, reffing 14-year-old girls. You're being so nasty to the referee. Like, at least provide a coach, like a referee coach, so that he can support her in the decisions. Hey, listen, don't, because being a ref in rugby, you're the only person on the pitch with 30 other athletes. So you can imagine the pressure that's on there. So they're putting much pressure on. And so I go and I said, hey, listen, this young lady is making the wrong calls and there's nobody for them to support her. And both sides, there's 30 other girls that are really pissed off that the refereeing is not good. Yeah. And so so I've got a couple of parents and he goes, well, it doesn't really matter. They're just 14-year-old girls. Mm-hmm. I lost my shit. I said, I am going to take my white middle-aged ass privileges and kick you right in the nuts and punch you in the throat. So
this was the experience I'm talking about, Gordon.
I said, you better, first of all, retract what you just said, and I'm going to stop the girl. I'm going to get my girls off the pitch. I'm going to talk to this rugby union, and this is going to be on you. And so the moms from the other team came over and said, can you be our coach? I was like, this is not acceptable. This is not acceptable. And I appreciate that, because I know that although there are forward-thinking people out there, that it's I don't want to use systematic, because it feels like we're blaming other people than ourselves. It's systematic. I agree with the terminology, but it's not personal enough. It just, the system. There's nothing I can do about the system. No, you can. You can punch the idiot in the face who said that. Well, no, that's not the answer. Don't listen to that, folks. That's not the answer to do it. But you're right. There's as much as we acknowledge the fact that it needs to change, there's still people out there who think like that.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Martin, what you're making me think of is just yesterday I was leading a workshop on mastering our mindset. And of course, you're in the world of sports, you're talking about it. We know our head game is just as important as our physical game in rugby, right? Oh, yeah. Athletes have known that, performers know that. Yet in business, we don't talk about that. So I do this cool workshop, Master Your Mindset. And we were talking about how our beliefs are shaped. Our values are shaped through all these seminal experiences. And so I love that, you said, hey, no. At 14, these are the moments that are shaping when they're in 40 in the office. Like, these are the moments, right? And so, yeah, these are exactly kind of how our experiences shape our beliefs and our mindsets and then our behaviors. So, yeah, it's a perfect example of that. What happened, Martin? What happened?
So the head referee came over and he said, "What's the problem?" And I said, "Well, here's what you're moron rugby." He's like, "No, I didn't use the word moron," but he clearly saw that I was not impressed. And I took my girls. I asked for a break, and this poor referee, she was in tears. I said, "You see what you're doing? This is not my girls doing." So I said to my girls, I said, "Okay, do you remember the first time you were on a rugby pitch? How scared you guys were? First game, it's really like imagine you're in the middle and you got 30 other girls looking at you. She's brave.
Yeah.
She's brave to be out there. And our job is if she does something wrong is to say, hey, listen, ma'am, talk to your captain, follow the process."
Yeah.
And I spoke to the other team. I said, hey, listen, if they don't put a coach, are you okay if we just kill the game? He's like, yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Yeah. Let's just call it. And lo and behold, 2 referees showed up and one came on the pitch, helped her. She made bad decisions, or I should say the wrong decisions, but at least somebody was there to coach her through those decisions.
She could learn, right?
Yeah. I mean, changing your mindset. There's an event that happened to me on last Thursday, Coach U16. And a couple of episodes, Josephine Kwang was talking about women and, what's it called? Flow to, hold on a second. Let me look it up again. Own Your Own Potential with Josephine Kwang. And her company is called Flow to Freedom. And it talks about how to engage conversation around periods. And as athlete, right? So last Thursday, I'm pushing the girls hard. We're doing fitness. The start of season's coming up, pushing the girls hard. And this girl kind of walks and I say, hey, run or you run. Come on. She keeps walking towards me. And she says, my period is pretty heavy and I'm kind of getting dizzy. And the other coaches heard this conversation. They were much younger than I am. We had 2 female coaches, another male coach. And I said, okay, I'll monitor. Let's make sure. I said, do you have the right gear on? She's like, yeah. I said, take the long way, go get some water. They looked at me and they're like, what? I was like, hey, listen, inside my knees were clanking together. I've got a 15-year-old girl that I barely know that tells me that she's got on her period and she's like that. And I'm a 50-year-old dad who's got 3 girls and 1 boy. I was like, I was shitting bricks. But I stayed cool on the outside, supported her 100%. And we just laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. They said, wow, you handled that well. I was like, yeah, shit, I didn't know what to do. I don't have period. I said, hey, just take the long way. Take what you need to get to. This is just a game. That was funny. Everybody laughed hard. But,
this generation, they are talking about things though that we never did. And it's, it's good.
But isn't that the beauty of it? Just to say, okay, great. Just I acknowledged it, supported it, and just kind of, all right, do what you need to do, but don't use it as an excuse, right? So, Tracy works hard with my girls to say, well, just because you're going to be on your period, the word's not going to stop. So you got to deal with it. I was like, I'm staying out of that conversation, no matter how much I want to support. I do not understand the process. I go fishing when Tracy's upset with me, but that's kind of that's the extent of that. There's a chapter 6, think who before do, and that one I really like because that's who's going to do it. Is all of this needs to happen, blah, 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 blah. And oftentimes women tend to say, I'll do it. And delegation is something that I don't see. Women tend to kind of take on instead of telling somebody else to do it. That's my opinion. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So delegation kind of studies are mixed on this, but I agree. In my experience, I have absolutely seen that women delegate less than men. And part of it is that empathy piece kind of kicks in. Oh, they're too busy. They're overwhelmed. Okay, I'll just take it on. Sometimes it's no, I know how to do it the best and I'm going to get the best results. So I'm going to just do it myself. And we see a lot of that on the home front as well as at work. And so, yeah, it's a real problem because when we're back to that, when we're stuck in the weeds and stuck down here, then it's really hard to be strategic. What that chapter is also about, which you're reminding me, I remember a fellow CEO had stood up, but this chapter is also about influence, building your network, and organizational politics. And one of the big pieces in there is just women's reticence to not only kind of build networks for your own gain, but then to leverage them. One of the most shocking studies that I came across was actually a German study of the executive suite women who said that the art of, or the practice of, leveraging networks, like, hey, can you do me a favor? Or, hey, can you introduce me to that person? Is unmorally, which is immoral. It's this
so true,
right? Like that we should be judged based on our own merit, that we shouldn't have to ask for favors. And of course that the world doesn't work that way. And it's not slimy or smarmy. But what I remember when I was, talking about this reticence to leverage networks with a group of leaders, the CEO stood up and said, okay, my big takeaway is I am going to open my network to all the women that are there, because it never even dawned on me that they weren't calling someone up and saying, hey, what do you know about this? He said, I just thought everyone did that. That's how you operate at an executive level. And he said, my commitment is I am opening up I will take you to that meeting. I will introduce you, just tell me. And so I think that's fascinating when a lot of leaders hear that.
It's so true. Even Andrea, who I think is a great leader within our organization, the more you think about it, she is really good at keeping the network of the organization, I'll say the word cozy. She's a good leader in making sure that they're safe, both physically, morally, and emotionally safe. But she doesn't leverage the same way. And now that I think about it, even Tracy, my life partner and spouse, she'll always say, "Hey, Martin, talk to your guy there. Do you have a guy for that?" And now that I think about it, there's a few times where she has somebody in her network that she chooses not to leverage. And I guess the word ickiness comes to mind. She finds it icky.
That's exactly it.
And we're us dudes, we're like, hey, can you come and help me move the couch? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Get me a beer. Tammy, what is the reference material of your choice? What has moved you, excited you, that you've kept on your nightstand? It could be a book, could be a movie, whatever, that you have referred to throughout your life as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a boss, that you go, I always fall back to this. And it could be older, it could be newer. If you're an avid reader, like some people are, and it's kind of the new flavor, but I'm looking to see kind of what's the book that has defined the person that you are.
Oh, wow. Define me. Now you're really upping the stakes. I don't know if it's defined me, but this one book that I refer to a lot that I just can't get out of my brain. And it was around the time when I was writing mine, is I picked up, it's called Burnout, and it's by the Nagoski sisters, Emily, and I forget the other one, Nagoski. And I found out about them because I was listening to a Brene Brown podcast, and they wrote a book on, the perfect timing, burnout, stress, resilience, but they really targeted it for women. And what was so important to me were two things. One, they said, this negative self-talk, and we've been referring to it the whole episode. You will never get rid of that. You will never, none of us, it will never go away. So don't try to erase it. What you need to do is instead say, self voice, thank you. Thank you for trying to protect me, because those voices are trying to protect us. but now I'm going to try something different. This isn't serving me anymore, and kind of we work on what we do need and want to try. So that was the first thing, is like, we think we should just like, oh, we just got to get rid of all this negativity. It's like, no, we're all going to have it forever. We just need to work with it differently. And the other piece was that, when they looked at the research of what helps the most with resilient stress burnout, everyone goes to, the good old exercise, healthy eating, and, forest bathing. Yes, all of that is important and works and is great. But you know what the number one thing is? Self-compassion.
Oh, shit.
What we say to ourselves. Right? How we treat ourselves, how we, let things go, all of that in self-compassion is the number one. And it's like that just, so that's certainly what I've been working on for myself and with all the women that beat themselves up regularly.
I say that because I was a great drill instructor, and I still am a great drill instructor with myself. Hard ass. I am not compassionate with myself. Always extremely hard. I mean, at a certain point, there's use and abuse, and the drill instructor can be useful, but most of the time of late, he, in my case, has been very disuseful. So yeah, that's why I said that, because it's been an awakening for me in the past year or so. It's just like, shit, I'm not nice with myself. I'm just ruthless with myself.
Yeah, well, and you've come from such a pedigree of that, right? From the service into rugby into CEO. It's like drive, and it's like that's helpful sometimes. A lot of times it's not.
I'm 51 now. Like I've earned my pasture time. I'm allowed to be the old ox in the pasture that's just looking at cars go by, just munching on his grass. I'm like, yeah. I'm still strong. But anyways, Tammy, it was a pleasure. Look at that. An hour has gone by, zoomed by. So people can get a hold of you on LinkedIn, I'm assuming, as well.
Yes. Yeah. And my website is super simple, tammyheermann.com.
That's double E. I messed up when I was looking you up. I did
double E, double N.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. So, and then your book here, which I will show for the people who are watching on YouTube, Reframe Your Story. Look, it had little stickies. I did my homework. Thank you for signing the books, by the way. Truly appreciate it. Like I said, the team appreciates the books in the library. Yeah. Did you have fun?
I did. It's been my pleasure.
Good. Yeah. With that being said, please like, subscribe, and click the notification bell for you guys to know when the next episode. A big thank you to Tammy for telling her story and being so vulnerable and transparent. And we guys will see you next time. I'm the host of What CEOs Talk About, where we translate vision into frontline strategies. Today was how do you translate female strategics. Get that in your head. Female are strategic. They just can't be. They are strategic, and they help your businesses in and out. So thank you very much, everybody. Catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to What CEOs Talk About. Make sure to click subscribe to get notified about future episodes, or check us out at www.whatceostalkabout.com.